Very provocative headline there. Are things falling apart for Trump? I don't know, but let's look. Let's look at the evidence from the Post tonight. Multiple polls this week showed Trump hitting new lows. His approval rating has been double digits underwater in surveys from the Pew Research Center, where he's minus 19, the Economist YouGov poll, where he's minus 13, the Reuters Ipsos poll, where he's minus 11, and now Fox News, where he is also minus 11. Trump was already more unpopular at this point in his presidency than any modern president not named Donald Trump. He's now flirting with falling below where he was even at this point in his historically unpopular first term. Quote, perhaps more troubling for Trump, most of his major policies are even more unpopular than he is. That suggests his image is largely buoyed by loyalists who might not like what they are seeing from him, but they still say they support him for now. Quote, around 6 in 10 Americans have been critical of both his tariffs and Elon Musk's roughshod efforts to cut government programs and employees. In one poll this week, Americans said by a nearly 2-to-1 proportion that the Trump administration should abide by a court order to facilitate the return of a man wrongly deported to prison in El Salvador, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That's a court order the administration is apparently flouting. Polling also suggests Americans strongly reject the Trump administration sending hundreds of men to the brutal El Salvador prison without due process, as well as Trump's efforts to deport student visa holders. Quote, in sum, it's all an increasing mess. Trump might try to muddle through, including by pressing forward on tariffs and risking a constitutional crisis by challenging the courts to actually make him abide by their orders. Quote, but with the courts asserting themselves and the public taking an increasingly dim view of what he is doing, political gravity is taking a heavy toll. It took a little less than 100 days. Yeah, well, when you put it like that way, it does sound bad. It does sound like things are falling apart for Trump. But, you know, we've also got the receipts, like we've got the actual numbers. So you don't just have to trust the characterization of them in the Washington Post tonight. We can actually just look. Let's start with the Fox News poll. Why not? Do you think the Trump administration has been competent and effective in managing the federal government? No, by a 9-point margin. Do you approve of the job Donald Trump is doing as president? No, by an 11-point margin. In the long run, do you think Donald Trump's policies will help the country? No, by an 11-point margin. So, you know, not positive on the big picture for President Trump. Well, what about the other president? Do you approve of the job Elon Musk is doing, working with DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency? Fox News poll respondents say no, resoundingly, by a 17-point margin. Do you approve of the way Donald Trump is handling the economy? No, by an 18-point margin. 18 points on the economy. Do you think Donald Trump's policies are helping the U.S. economy? No, by a 22-point margin. Do you think imposing tariffs on products imported from other countries helps the U.S. economy? No, by a 23-point margin. Do you approve of the way Trump is handling tariffs? No, 25-point margin. Do you approve of the way Trump is handling inflation? No, 26-point margin. Oh, and here's a really good one. This is, again, the Fox News poll. If President Trump thinks the Supreme Court is overstepping its constitutional authority, can he ignore the court? No, by a 49-point margin. So that's the Fox News poll. Obviously, that's all terrible news for Trump. The others are worse. Here's the Economist YouGov poll. They polled on a bunch of policy issues, asking people not just how they feel about how Trump is handling himself generally, but how he's doing on basically every issue area of policy. And the answer to every single one of those questions was basically the same answer. I mean, look, I'll just show you what I mean. Do you approve of Trump's handling of jobs and the economy? No, by a 12-point margin. Do you approve of Trump's handling of trade? No, 16-point margin. Do you approve of his handling of inflation? No. Do you approve of his handling of immigration? No. Do you approve of Trump's handling of foreign policy? No. National security? No. Education? No. Crime? How about crime? No, not crime either. Do you believe Donald Trump should bring Kilmar Abrego Garcia back to the United States? Yes. Yes, Americans say Trump should bring Mr. Abrego Garcia back to the U.S., and they say so emphatically by a 22-point margin. Quote, since President Trump took office again this year, have his actions on the economy helped or hurt the United States? Hurt by a 33-point margin. Do you think Donald Trump has the temperament to be the president? No, by a 10-point margin. Are you confident in Donald Trump's ability to deal wisely with an international crisis? No, 13-point margin. Are you satisfied with what Trump has accomplished in his first 100 days as president? No, 15-point margin. Trump has been president for about 100 days. Has he performed better or worse than you expected when he became president? Worse by a 17-point margin. Since President Trump took office, has his behavior in the United States, has his behavior in the White House helped or hurt the United States? Not just the economy, but has he hurt the nation? Hurt. Has he helped or hurt? He has hurt the nation, Americans say, by a 24-point margin. Other than that, Mr. President, how's your first 100 days been? Couple more. And this is interesting. NBC News has brand new polling on young people's views. This is people age 18 to 29. People age 18 to 29 disapprove of Trump's handling of inflation and the cost of living by a 39-point margin. People age 18 to 29 disapprove of Trump deporting people for participating in protests about Israel's actions in Gaza. They disapprove of that by a 52-point margin. And look at this. Should people in the U.S. who hold student visas, work visas, and green cards be given due process protections when facing criminal or civil charges? Should they get due process protections? 92% say yes. 92%. I don't know, maybe they might be overestimating the appeal of performatively cruel, tyrannical secret police snatch and grabs off American streets. Yeah, funny, they thought Americans would love that. Turns out Americans do not love that. Okay, one more. This is the Pew poll. And this one is put together a little different than the others in terms of the type of questions they're asking. And you'll see what I mean when I give you these questions. But again, I'll tell you the bottom line here. The answers for Trump are all the same as those ones that I just read. None of it is good for him. Just look at this. This is the Pew poll. When it comes to cuts the Trump administration is making to federal departments and agencies, would you say that the Trump administration's approach will save Americans money in the long run? No. No, by a 7-point margin. Do you approve of the Trump administration's actions to end diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in the federal government? No, by a 9-point margin. Do you approve of the cuts the administration is making to federal departments and agencies? No, by an 11-point margin. When it comes to cuts the Trump administration is making to federal departments and agencies, do you think the administration's approach will make the government run better? No, by a 15-point margin. Okay, so this is all very bad, right? Well, how about this Trump signature issue, right? The big splash he wants to make, the thing he wants.
Wall Street and the business community are hanging on, looking for any sign to get out of this tariff mess. But isn't it amazing that we were all caught flat-footed about the tariffs? Donald Trump has been promising them for 40-plus years. But most people, me included, thought he's just going to ride Joe Biden's economy. He's going to ride Joe Biden's economy. There'll be some tax cuts. There'll be some deregulation. And this guy could roll down to Mar-a-Lago every week and have a Saudi golf tournament, and he'll be in Fat City. Isn't it amazing that this is the route he's chosen and the panic that's ensued from big business, small business, and the street?
Yeah, I think a lot of people assumed the 2018-2019 model was what would apply this time around, which is strategic, targeted tariffs that did have a cost. There was a stock market drop in 2018. It did have a cost back then. These are a different order of magnitude higher. This is 145% on China. This is 10% baseline around the world and higher in a lot of places. That's just an order of magnitude that businesses were not ready for. People are CEOs are scrambling. How do we even deal with this? The margins aren't big enough to absorb that, and that's going to pay a price if they get fully implemented, which is the open question right now.
Peter, I keep thinking back when I first started working in finance. I remember someone had a plaque on their desk that said, "Your word is your bond." And let's talk about the word we're getting from the White House. On the very same day, Trump says, "We are in talks with China on trade." And on the very same day, China says, "Nope, not happening." So tell us what you're hearing, because in terms of credibility, that flew out the window.
Yeah, even Scott Bessent said the other day that they were not yet in talks. So, look, Trump wants to be in talks. Obviously, he anticipates being in talks. But that doesn't mean you're actually in talks. And it's I think that kind of confusion, once again, leaves businesses and investors so uncertain about where things are going. I mean, I think that Trump wants to get a deal, obviously, if he can, but that doesn't mean he's going to get rid of all the tariffs when it comes to China. And it doesn't mean that they'll get a deal that was satisfying in the near term. China has obviously staked out a very hard-line position on this. They're willing to stand up to Trump in a way that, say, Europe and other trading partners haven't been willing to do. They're willing to get in his face. They're willing to troll him. They're willing to play ball in the same way that Trump plays, right? They used the phrase fake news today to push back on him when he said that they were in talks. That's not something you see from our European allies as much, but you are seeing it from China. That does suggest that they're, in fact, willing to take a certain amount of pain in order to hold out for, some deal that they consider to be advantageous to them, not simply agree to whatever Trump dictates.
Angelo, Trump's approval rating shows that 38% of people approve of how he's handling the economy. Like, the economy is supposed to be his jam, right? I talked to so many business leaders during the campaign who were like, "I can't stand him. He's not my guy. However, he knows business. She doesn't know business." And look where we are. What does that tell you?
What you're seeing is the collapse of Trump's project. It was never like this. It wasn't. We like to think, guys, that Trump was destined to lose the 2020 election from 2016. Like, the moment he won, he was going to lose in 2016. That was our hope. But you got to remember that the data didn't bear that out. Certainly, he was very unpopular. That's true. He was very unpopular. His policies were destructive. People worried about how the United States was crumbling. Its democracy was being weakened on the inside, how the United States' global reputation was being hurt. But the economy, which again was basically Barack Obama and Joe Biden's economy, right? Let's be clear, was humming along pretty well because Trump didn't intentionally destroy it like he did this time. And I think, honestly, a lot of people think that if it wasn't for his disastrous handling of the pandemic, Trump would have won again. Because so many of the world leaders that handled it even halfway decently won again, even if they weren't popular before the crisis broke out. Now, what this shows is that this time it's so much worse. It's so much worse this time. The polling is way worse, and Trump is destroying credibility on both within his own base and his soft supporters, which did not happen in 2017. That took longer the first time. But also, he's doing it on the issues that mattered to him. I've said this before. You do not need to believe that Trump was good for the economy, but most voters did, even in 2020, and they voted against him despite the fact that they thought he did good on the economy because of everything else. Now, the economy is quickly becoming one of his worst topics. That's hellacious for him.